Ladies and gentlemen, gather close. Let's talk about entitlement, the grand illusion, the biggest joke of them all. There's a certain kind of arrogance, a confidence so bloated, it forgets the very rules of existence. It convinces someone they can stomp, shout, tear you down piece by piece, all while expecting you to sit there and take it with a smile. It whispers lies in their ears, wrapping them in a blanket of delusion that they are above reproach, untouchable by the consequences of their actions. This arrogance is a poison. It grows unchecked. It destroys everything in its path. It feeds on the weak and thrives on the silent, the ones who shrink away into the background as the abuser roars with the power of their perceived supremacy. But I say no more. I say it's time we tear down this facade. Let the masks fall. Let their egos shatter because you stood against their relentless abuse. You stood tall when they expected you to bow, and they could not handle it. They were not prepared for your resistance. They had built themselves up on a pedestal made of lies, deceit, and manipulation. They thought they could break you, bend you, mold you into something small, something insignificant. They wanted you to shrink. They wanted you to disappear into the shadows. But you did not disappear. You did not bend. You stood firm. And because of that, their ego is shattered. Because they underestimated the power that lies within you. Because you showed them the truth they feared, the truth they couldn't bear to acknowledge. And now, their illusion of power lies in ruins. Their sense of control has been ripped away, piece by piece, as you refuse to play by their rules, the rules they thought were unbreakable, because they knew how to twist the game in their favor. They knew how to manipulate the system to their benefit. But you exposed it all. You showed them that they are not as untouchable as they thought. They are not invincible. They are not the kings and queens of this world they pretend to be. No, they are fragile. They are vulnerable. They are weak. And now, they will have to face the consequences of their actions. Because you stood against them when they thought they had the upper hand. You refused to be intimidated. You refused to cower in the face of cruelty. And the more you stood your ground, the more they realized they were not dealing with someone who would submit to their will. Number, you are a force that cannot be controlled, a force that cannot be bent or broken. And now that they've seen that, now that they've realized their mistake, their ego has taken the biggest hit they've ever known. And it hurts them, doesn't it? It stings to their core because they thought they were untouchable. They thought their words could tear you down. Their actions could break you. They thought you were weak. They thought you were nothing but a stepping stone for them to climb higher on. But now they see the truth, and the truth is this: you are not weak. You are not insignificant. You are not a stepping stone. You are a force in your own right, a force that they can no longer control, a force that they must reckon with, a force that leaves them trembling in their own fragility. So when you see their ego shatter, when you see their arrogance crumble, know this: it is the result of your strength. It is the result of your defiance. It is the result of your refusal to be silenced. Their ego is shattered because you had the courage to stand up when they expected you to fall. You had the strength to fight back when they wanted you to give up. And the more you did it, the more they realized that they were not dealing with someone who would just roll over and take it. They were dealing with someone who would fight back, who would stand tall, who would make their presence known. And the more you did it, the more their illusion of power dissolved. Their arrogance crumbled like a house of cards. The harder they tried to push, the more it backfired on them. Because the moment you stood up to them, the moment you stopped being afraid, the moment you showed them that their power over you was nothing but a lie, that's when they started to lose control. That's when their ego began to wither, And as their ego shattered, you stood tall. You stood proud because you knew the truth. You knew that no matter how hard they tried to tear you down, you would not be broken. You would not be defeated. And now, they are left with nothing but the ruins of their own arrogance, nothing but the remains of a broken ego that can never be put back together. Because you showed them that they are not above you. They are not better than you. They are not invincible. They are human just like you. And in their humanity, they are vulnerable. They are weak. They are flawed. And you showed them that you are stronger than they ever imagined. You are capable of more than they could ever understand. You are a force of nature that cannot be broken. And that is what shatters their ego. It's not just the fact that you resisted them. It's not just the fact that you stood up to them. It's the fact that you showed them something they never saw coming. You showed them your strength. You showed them your resilience. And that is something they can never ignore. No matter how hard they try, no matter how much they scream, no matter how much they try to intimidate you, they will never be able to take back what you've done. They will never be able to erase the fact that you stood against them. And their ego shattered because of it. Their arrogance, their entitlement, their delusion of control. It all crumbled because you refused to be a victim. You refused to let them dictate your life. And now, they have to face the consequences of their own actions. Because when you stand up to abuse, when you stand up to tyranny, when you stand up to oppression, you change the world in ways they never expected. When you refuse to be a punching bag, when you refuse to be silenced, when you refuse to let them break you, you create a ripple effect that shakes everything around you. And they are left to deal with the fallout. They are left to face the consequences of their cruelty. And the more they try to act like it doesn't bother them, the more they try to pretend they are unaffected, the more they reveal the truth that their ego was never as strong as they thought it was, the truth that they were always fragile, always vulnerable, always terrified of being exposed for who they really are. And now, they are exposed. Now, the world sees them for what they truly are, fragile, broken human beings who hide behind their ego to avoid facing their insecurities, their fears, their weaknesses. And when you expose that truth, when you force them to confront the reality of their own brokenness, their ego shatters into 1,000 pieces. And they can't put it back together. They can't rebuild what's been destroyed because the foundation was never solid to begin with. And that's the power you have. You have the power to expose the lie they've been living. You have the power to shatter the illusion they've spent years building. And when you do that, you change everything. You change the way they see themselves. You change the way they see the world around them. You change the way they interact with others. You change the way they treat people. And in that change, they will be forced to confront the truth they were never prepared for. The truth that they are not invincible. The truth that they are not untouchable. The truth that they are not above anyone else. And that truth is, their ego is fragile. It is a house of cards waiting to collapse at any moment. And when you stand against them, when you resist their abuse, when you refuse to let them control you, when you refuse to let them break you, their ego shatters like glass, crashing to the ground. And in that moment, you know that you've won, because you didn't just survive their abuse, you didn't just endure their cruelty, you destroyed their illusion, you exposed their weakness, and in doing so, you showed them who's really in control. So stand tall, stand proud, because you are the one who changed everything. You are the one who shattered their ego. You are the one who showed them the truth about themselves. And there is no greater victory than that. Because when you shatter their ego, you strip them of the power they once had over you. You show them that no matter how much they try to tear you down, no matter how much they try to destroy you, you will never be defeated. You will never be broken. And that is what shatters their ego. It's the realization that they were never in control. It's the realization that they were always vulnerable. It's the realization that their power was nothing more than an illusion. And when that illusion is broken, when that mask falls, there is nothing left but the raw truth. The truth that they are just as fragile as anyone else. And that truth will haunt them for the rest of their lives. So let them try to rebuild their ego. Let them try to regain their control. But they can't. Because once you've shattered it, once you've exposed the lie, once you've taken away their power, they can never have it back. The illusion is gone. The mask is gone. And they are left to face the reality of their own brokenness. And there is no escaping that reality. And that is your victory. That is your power. That is the power of standing up against abuse and tyranny. The power of standing tall in the face of cruelty and never backing down. You have won, because their ego is shattered, and there is nothing they can do to fix it. Nothing they can do to rebuild it. Nothing they can do to regain the control they thought they had over you. They are exposed, they are vulnerable, they are weak, and they will never forget that truth. In the end, you showed them that the greatest power of all is the power to stand against oppression, to stand against abuse, to stand against cruelty, and come out victorious. The moment you stand against the ones who believe they have power over you, something powerful happens. It's not just about what they lose, it's about what you gain. When their illusions start to crumble, you stand taller, you stand stronger. Their falsehoods become apparent. And with that clarity, they reveal just how fragile they are. The truth always has a way of making its presence known, even in the darkest of spaces. And when you stood against their abuse, you not only made them aware of their own fragility, you made yourself aware of your own strength. This is where true power lies. In standing firm against the crushing weight of abuse, you not only dismantle their control, you rebuild yourself stronger than before. They thought they had you pegged. They thought you were weak. They thought they could break you. They thought you would bend, kneel, and ultimately submit to their cruelty. But in standing up, you shattered their belief system. You exposed the cracks in the foundation of their lies, and it terrified them. That's what they feared most. The realization that their manipulation could be seen through, that their words had no substance, and that the terror they wielded was nothing more than a smokescreen hiding their own vulnerabilities. They lived in a bubble of entitlement, surrounded by their falsehoods, thinking they were untouchable. You broke that bubble. You broke it with a quiet strength, with the simple decision to no longer submit. You didn't need to scream, to raise your voice, or to escalate the situation. No. All you had to do was show them that you were not afraid, that you were not their victim. And when they realized this, when they understood that they could no longer control you, their ego crumbled, and it broke them in a way that no amount of power, no amount of manipulation could ever heal. Their arrogance, their desperate grasp at control was exposed for what it truly was: a mask, a shield made of paper-thin pretensions. They spent so much of their energy creating this facade that when it began to crack, when you no longer allowed them to hold power over you, they were left defenseless. And what happens? When you remove the illusion of power from someone, they become small, insignificant, weak. The very thing they built their entire identity upon, their ego, begins to erode. Slowly at first and then rapidly, as they realize they have nothing left to hide behind. The most beautiful part of this transformation is that it's not about revenge. It's not about causing pain in return for the suffering they inflicted on you. It's about reclaiming your power, reclaiming your voice. It's about finally recognizing your own worth and understanding that no one, not even them, has the right to diminish you, to control you. or to destroy you. It's about standing in your truth, unapologetically. And once you do that, there is nothing they can do to stop you. Their ego, which they built up to control you, is a fragile structure. It's based on fear, on lies, on manipulation, and when faced with the truth, it is bound to fall. You don't need to destroy them. You don't need to retaliate. All you need to do is stand tall, unwavering, in the knowledge that you are no longer their puppet, their target, or their plaything. Do you see how powerful that is? You didn't need to become them. You didn't need to adopt their methods. You didn't need to stoop to their level of cruelty. No, you simply refused to let them control your life. And that refusal is what broke their hold over you. It's what shattered their ego. Because deep down, they were always afraid that one day someone would stand against them. Someone would see through the mask, and someone would not allow them to continue their reign of terror. And now, that someone is you. They thought their words were weapons. They thought their cruelty was a shield they could hide behind. But what they didn't know was that their abuse was only a reflection of their own insecurity, of their own lack of control, of their own fear. They wanted to crush your spirit so that they could maintain their illusion of power, but instead, they crushed their own ego. And that's the part they can never recover from. Their whole identity was wrapped up in the lie that they were in control. But in truth, they were always afraid, always hiding behind their arrogance, behind their self-made illusions, behind the power they thought they could project. And when you stood up to them, you forced them to face that truth, the truth they never wanted to see. The truth that their ego was nothing more than a shield, protecting them from the deep, unresolved insecurities that plagued them. Now, they are left exposed, raw, vulnerable, without the facade they spent so long building. They are no longer in control. And you are standing in the light. You are standing in your own truth. And that is a power that no one can ever take from you. They thought they had the upper hand, didn't they? They thought that with every word, every insult, every manipulation, they were cutting you down, building their own throne at your expense. But you didn't break. You didn't fall. You fought back with resilience, with strength, and with the quiet power of someone who refuses to be dominated. And in doing so, you made them see their own weakness. You showed them the one thing they could never admit, that they are as fragile as everyone else. What's more dangerous than an inflated ego? An ego that is never confronted, never questioned, never challenged. It grows out of control. It convinces the one who wears it that they are above everyone else, that they are untouchable. But the moment you stand against it, the moment you confront it, it has nowhere to go. It is exposed for what it truly is. Fear. A fear of being vulnerable. A fear of being seen for what they truly are. Imperfect, insecure, fragile. When you stood against them, you showed them that their control was a mirage. It was never real. Their power was a lie. Their ego was just a shield they used to hide from the truth of who they really are. And now that the mask has fallen, they are left standing alone, with nothing to hide behind, with nothing to protect them. They are naked, exposed, and vulnerable, and they know it. Their ego is shattered because you stood your ground, because you refused to be intimidated, because you refused to let their lies define you. You refused to let their cruelty dictate your life. And in doing so, you exposed them. You exposed the truth. It's not about vengeance, it's about truth. It's about refusing to be silenced, refusing to let someone else's arrogance define your existence. You didn't let them tear you down. You didn't let them win. And now, their ego lies in ruins. They can never rebuild it. Not after you've seen through it. Not after you've forced them to face it. And that, my friends, is the most powerful victory of all. In the end, you didn't just survive, you thrived. You stood up, you pushed back, and when their ego shattered, when their illusion of control fell apart, you were left standing, stronger than before. You didn't let them define you, you defined yourself, and that is something they will never understand. Now, they are exposed. Now, they are vulnerable. Now, they are left with nothing but the broken pieces of their own ego. And that's what happens when someone dares to stand against the cruelty, against the manipulation, against the abuse. When you stand against it, you shatter the ego that once held them up, and in doing so, you claim your own power. So, stand tall, stand proud, because you have done what they never thought possible. You have destroyed their illusion, you have shattered their ego, and that is your greatest victory. As you stand there victorious, having weathered the storm of their abuse, you come to realize something profound. The strength it took to stand against their tyranny, the courage to face the wrath of their ego, was not only the proof of your own power, it was the proof of your resilience. In the face of relentless assault, in the face of cruelty designed to break you, you chose not to fold, not to fade into silence, not to crumble under the weight of their expectations. You know that the true battle wasn't fought in the words, the manipulation, or the physical confrontations. No, the true battle was fought within you. It was the battle between succumbing to their abuse or rising above it, taking control of your own destiny, and refusing to allow their actions to define who you are. In that very act of standing against them, of not bending to their will, you found something far more powerful than any word or insult they could throw at you. You found your own strength. It is often said that the greatest warriors are those who don't seek the fight. They don't desire confrontation. They don't revel in the chaos of war. Instead, they fight when they must, when the cause is just, when their values are at stake, when their spirit is being crushed under the weight of someone else's ego. You didn't ask for the battle. You didn't seek this conflict. But when it came to you, when their arrogance pushed too far, when their abuse became too much to bear, you fought. And now that they are confronted with the aftermath of your strength, they know that they have been exposed for who they truly are. They are no longer cloaked in the illusion of control. Their actions, their words, their very sense of superiority are now laid bare for all to see. The longer they try to maintain the facade, the more it crumbles. Because deep down, they know the truth. They know that the moment they crossed that line, the moment they began to think they could control you, they sealed their own fate. But here's the beauty of it. Their ego was never real. Their strength was never their own. The power they exerted over others was nothing more than a carefully constructed mask, an illusion, a lie that was built on manipulation and cruelty. And when that lie is exposed, when you stand against it, when you make it known that their abuse will not be tolerated, that mask cannot withstand the force of your truth. In that moment of resistance, you became a mirror. You reflected back to them the darkness they had been feeding into the world, and they couldn't look away. They had to confront themselves, their fear, their vulnerability, their weakness. That is the moment when their ego shatters, when they realize that they no longer have control over you or anyone else. Their power was never based on substance. It was based on their ability to manipulate the situation to their advantage. But once you pulled the rug out from under them, once you removed the illusion, they are left to fall back into the emptiness they've been hiding from all along. It is that emptiness that terrifies them. For the first time, they are forced to face the person they truly are, stripped of the armor they so carefully built to protect their fragile ego. They no longer have a weapon to wield, no false narrative to control the story. They are bare, exposed, vulnerable. And that vulnerability, that rawness, is what frightens them the most, because it shows them that their entire existence has been a facade. It's been a mask. It's been a lie. And here's where the power lies. In shattering the ego, you don't only dismantle their control, you also free yourself from the chains that bound you to their manipulation. When they thought they could break you, they didn't realize they were setting you free. Every insult, every attempt to crush your spirit, every word designed to reduce you, they've unknowingly been chiseling away at their own power. And in doing so, they've unknowingly paved the way for your freedom. Freedom, in its truest form, comes not from escaping an external force, but from realizing that you never had to be bound to that force in the first place. They might have thought they had power over you, but you were never truly theirs to control. When you stood against them, you stripped away their illusion of control, and in doing so, you discovered that your strength was never in their hands. It was always within you. And now, as their ego lies shattered on the ground, they will try to rebuild. They will attempt to regroup, to plot a new path, to regain the sense of dominance they once had. But they can never fully repair the damage. Because the truth, once revealed, cannot be undone. The illusion they worked so hard to maintain will always have cracks. And the more they try to cover those cracks, the more they reveal the truth behind them. The truth is that they are just as vulnerable as anyone else. They are as human as the rest of us. They are not invincible, and their arrogance was never the shield they thought it was. In truth, it was a prison, a cage they built for themselves out of fear. And now, that fear has been exposed. Now, they are faced with the consequences of their actions, and there is no way to avoid them. But here's the final lesson in all of this. When you stand against abuse, when you stand against manipulation, you not only break their ego, you also break the cycle. You become a beacon for others who might be suffering in silence, who might be living under the weight of someone else's cruelty. By standing tall, by showing them that resistance is possible, you become a symbol of hope. You show others that they too can rise above the abuse, that they too can find their voice. That is the power of breaking an ego. It doesn't just destroy the person who seeks to control. It also lifts up everyone around them. It creates a ripple effect of strength and resilience, a movement of people who refuse to be broken, who refuse to be silenced. When one person stands tall, others see it, others feel it, and they too stand taller. And so, the cycle of abuse is broken, not just for one, but for all who dare to follow. So as you stand here, victorious, know that the fight you waged wasn't just for you. It was for all those who will follow, for all those who will look to you and realize that they too can stand. They too can refuse to be controlled, to be dominated, to be broken. You've paved the way for them. You've shown them that their voice matters. You've shown them that they have the power to stand up to abuse, to manipulate their own narrative, and to rise above the cruelties that would seek to destroy them. Your victory is not just yours. It belongs to everyone who is still struggling, to everyone who has been made to feel small, to everyone who has been told they are nothing. Your victory is proof that no one is truly powerless. Everyone has the strength to stand up, to speak out, to break the chains of abuse. Your refusal to submit to their ego is the seed that will grow into a forest of resistance. So stand proud, stand firm, because in shattering their ego, you have not only freed yourself, you have freed countless others. And that is the ultimate victory. That is the power you hold. That is the legacy you leave behind. The battle you fought was not one of violence, but one of truth. And truth, when spoken with strength, with courage, and with conviction, is the most powerful weapon of all. Their ego is shattered, but in its place, you've built something far more enduring. You've built a legacy that cannot be undone. As long as you remember this power, as long as you stand firm in your truth, you will always be the one who holds the upper hand. Because no matter how much they try, no matter how much they scream, their ego will never recover from the impact of your resistance. And that, my friends, is the victory you have earned. And that victory will echo for generations to come. In the end, standing against abuse and manipulation is not just about breaking the ego of those who seek to control you. It's about reclaiming your power, your voice, and your truth. The victory you've achieved is not only for yourself, but for anyone who has ever been silenced, oppressed, or made to feel small. You have shown them that resistance is possible, that strength comes from standing tall in the face of cruelty, and that no one is ever truly powerless. Your courage has shattered their ego, and in doing so, you've created a legacy of resilience that will inspire and empower others long after the battle is over.